in my career or from the time I've come to this country. Like, I think there was like one advanced horse trial in this country when I first came, which was in the early 90s, and now the horse trials are really flourishing in this country. And the long formats like you see it, Maryland and Kentucky and et cetera, they're still popular, but the shorter format courses and classes are popular, and brings the local community out too. So it's become a sort of a sport, a proper sport and industry, and a lot of riders now are making a living from this, which in my day it was you had to ride at the racetrack or do something on the side. This was something that you just save money up to do, whereas now there's so many people coming into the sport and lessons and selling horses, et cetera, that it's a whole industry in itself.
Welcome to the Practical Horseman podcast, featuring conversations with respected riders, industry leaders, and horse care experts. The show is co-hosted by Practical Horseman editors, and our goal is to inform, educate, and inspire. I'm Julia Murphy, and this week's episode is with renowned international eventer Phillip Dutton. Originally from Australia, Dutton grew up competing at pony club rallies and horse trials during his childhood and teenage years, and continued to pursue riding while studying at university in Australia. In 1991, Dutton moved to the United States to continue his training and prepare for the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, where he won his first Olympic gold medal as part of Australia's eventing team. In 2006, Dutton became an American citizen and changed his competitive nationality so that he would be eligible to represent the United States. Over the course of his career, Dutton has represented Australia and the United States in a combined 7 Olympic Games and has earned 2 gold medals and 1 bronze. In addition to his Olympic medals, Dutton has won team gold at 2 World Equestrian Games and 1 individual silver. He's also been to 6 World Championships and has racked up accolades including 13 USEA Leading Rider of the Year awards, Developing Rider Coach of the Year in 2009, and countless wins and top placings at 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star events. In this episode, brought to you by Cosequin Equine, Dutton discusses how the sport of eventing has evolved since his first Olympics in Atlanta in 1996 to now, his most recent Olympics in Tokyo in 2021. He also shares his thoughts on the future of eventing here in the United States and the direction he believes the sport needs to move in. Before we dive into the podcast with Dutton, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this week's episode, Cosequin Equine, and share their message. Cosequin ASU Pellets, the joint health supplement veterinarians and champions choose when performance matters, comes in a tasty pellet preferred by horses and horse owners. The ingredients have been shown in cell culture studies to be more effective in reducing the breakdown of cartilage than glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate alone. Learn more at cosequinequine.com. Now let's dive into the episode.
Well, thank you again for just taking the time to come and speak with us. I know that our listeners are absolutely going to love to hear from you. So many eventers, equestrians in general, hunter jumper, and all across the sport just admire you so much. And I know that they are going to be so excited to listen to this. And so I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Tokyo Olympics were already like 6 months ago. Like, time has flown. And U.S. eventing got 6th in those Olympics. And I'm just curious, what was the experience like in Tokyo for you?
Well, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be on with you, Julia. It was a great experience. Any Olympic Games is unique and special, and representing your country and being a part of the whole big games and the whole world being a part of it. It's pretty cool and amazing, and so and obviously, like I said, every Games is unique. This one was particularly unique with COVID and all the travel restrictions, and seeing the Winter Olympics now struggling. It's actually a miracle that it all went off. Looking back on it now, and but the Japanese certainly went to great lengths to put on a superb Olympics, and obviously we were concerned about the heat and humidity and that kind of thing, but everything was done really well for the horses. as far as, trying to make the competition be at the best time of the day, whether it's early in the morning or in the evening, and all the, barns and transport was all, air conditioned and cooled, and everything was, there was no stone left unturned as far as the Olympics go. And, as a team, we kind of got left behind a little bit, which was, not what we aimed for, but, it was a, certainly we haven't finished as a team for a while at the Olympics. So that was a step up. Not that we're satisfied with that, but certainly it was not a terrible performance, but it was, we were always hoping for better.
And what did you think of Z's performance at the Olympics?
Well, again, I was hoping for more. The dressage, he certainly, I couldn't have got much more out of him there. I think that's kind of as good as he could have gone at that stage. I'm hoping, obviously, every week you train them, you get a little bit better. So I'm hoping for better still in the future. Cross country, it was a twisting, turning, undulating course, and then I got held on course, and so it wasn't an ideal day for us. I got a couple of time faults, and he got me out of trouble right at the end of the water jump, which I thank him wholeheartedly for. And then the show jumping sort of didn't go our way. He is a great show jumper, but it just, I'm sure all of your listeners know, when you put all that time and effort and planning in, it just doesn't quite go how you want. And so that part was a bit disappointing to me. But I don't know, you can't get too despondent. You've got to just sharpen your pencil and keep at it, and keep getting better. And the horse is getting better, and I'd like to think I'm getting better as well. So hopefully we've got better things in the future.
And you've been to 7 games in your lifetime and in your career. And what was the cross country course in Tokyo like compared to other ones you've seen? I just watching it on TV, it looked so unique and stunning with the skyline view, and it looked like a really challenging track. So what did you think of it?
Yes, it's certainly dimension-wise, just as far as size goes, it wouldn't have been that. Wouldn't have been top of the scale for the size, but there was a lot of thought given to where the jumps were placed, and how to, that would put pressure on the horses and riders to go fast, or basically to make it harder for them to go fast. And, and when you do that, then you put pressure on the jumps and the lines, and, when people are trying to save time on the approach to the jumps, well, then, they take more of a risk. And so that was the case. And so I think it was a very fair test. We're going to touch on this a little bit with our talk, I think, but, the sport's evolved, and now you have breakaway pins that you get penalized if you knock those down. So, there's an element of, your horse, you've got to do a bit of a show jumping round around some of them as well, so that you don't break a pin. And that was influential. And, the terrain, like you said, it was unique. It's kind of on an island, and, there was a lot of going backwards and forwards and turning. And, but having said that, it was a very fair track. And, I think the best horses and riders come through and did the best.
And yeah, to talk about the evolution of the sport, like I said, you've been to 7 games, you've won 3 medals, 2 gold and 1 bronze. So what are you seeing in the evolution of the sport since your first Olympics in Atlanta in 96, correct?
Yeah, so 96 was my first Olympics, and I'm certainly aging myself here, Julie. But it has come a long way, keeping in mind that, the sport was originally designed as training for the military officers, the cavalry officers, and so it's come a long way since then. Certainly in Atlanta, it was more of just a cross country endurance test, and that was my first experience, and it was a great experience. I was on the gold medal team for Australia there, and we blasted away on the cross country, and then it sort of didn't matter so much what the dressage or the show jumping, what happened there. And in those days, the cross country was so much longer. I think it was like a 13-minute cross-country course. And then we had, phases A and then the steeplechase and the phase C and then the cross-country. So, it was a big day for the horses. And then probably the next Olympics, which Sydney, and that was kind of where things started to change. And, there was more emphasis put on. And I think a lot of the countries, a lot of the horses, the riders and the coaches and the teams started to realize that, certainly the dressage, we needed to be able to get that more, if you could get really competitive there and, leave the show jumps up. And then if you went fast in the cross country, there's nobody could beat you. So there's a lot more emphasis on those times went into the dressage and the show jumping. And added to that, then through the FEI, the sport started to abbreviate, you might say, the cross country, and it wasn't as much of an endurance test, and the phases A, B, and C were taken out. So it's it has evolved. There's certainly more emphasis on the dressage and show jumping now, and sort of accuracy and the horses need to be more rideable, probably cross country, than they did before. Like the big, strong, just pull your arms out kind of horse doesn't really have a place at the highest level now that much. So, I think it's been all a great evolution. After Sydney Olympics, then it went on to Athens, and it kind of took a little bit of a dip there, I feel, as in the cross country and the standard and the difficulty of it. And so then I think then there was sort of the powers that be decided that the cross country needed to be a little bit stronger still after that. And then it was the China Olympics in Hong Kong. So similar a bit, I guess, to Tokyo with the conditions. And then London, which was right in the center of the city. And then Rio, which was, again, a proper test on the cross country, which was influential. So, I think in a way that endurance and the fatigue on the horses is not as great, but certainly now the difficulty of the cross country is still up there. And, we're fortunate to have still keep great course designers that can, in an intelligent way, sort of sort out, make it so it's still a proper test without, making it too difficult or, making it unfair for the horses, put it that way.
And looking even forward to the future, do you think that there will be any more changes? I guess evolution is kind of an always happening thing, but or can you maybe even predict anything that might change in the coming Olympic Games?
Yes, I mean, so, in that place there, and I think it might have been in Athens where the two show jumping rounds came into place. And so that certainly obviously put more emphasis on the show jumping. And, what we saw in Tokyo was, by far the biggest show jumping that we've encountered in eventing. And so obviously there's more emphasis going into that. And, I touched on these frangible breakaway pins. So that's playing a part. It's not only just about, in the what you might call the good old days, where you could just like run your horse at the fence and they were fixed there pretty solidly. They didn't come down. And but nowadays, there's a lot of them have these frangible pins that, with a certain amount of weight that jump will break or let go, and then you're penalized. So that's that part of it, I think, is going to be influential. And obviously the flag situation is still an ongoing issue. It's very hard for a jump judge to be able to decipher what part of the horse was inside the flag if they hit it, and you're going pretty quick. And I still think that that's probably something that can be addressed, that will be addressed in the future. I mean, and I see, there's other sports with like ski racing and that kind of thing that have the flag situation. So there's probably is a better way out there, and a fairer way, and an easier way to understand it as far as flags go, which I can see happening in the future. And hopefully somebody smart and intelligent can come up with a good system there.
And you mentioned before in earlier Olympics, it was so heavy on the endurance and cross country, and now there's much more of a weight in the show jumping and dressage. For you personally, do you like that, or did you prefer it the way that it was when it was so heavy on cross country? What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I've kind of embraced the changes. I think it's all good. I mean, it's good for our riding. It's good for horsemanship. It's, there's one thing to have, just that brave, horse that just takes on anything. But, there's a lot more tact, a lot more sophistication goes into it now. And I don't want to come across to say, the cross country is not, in my opinion, is not any easier. It's just there's less emphasis on, that endurance part of it. There's more emphasis now on, a good, clever jumping horse and a really adjustable horse. And I think all of that is good. There was a time when basically the whole sport was filled with thoroughbred off the track thoroughbred horses. And, that's not the case as much anymore. And there's obviously a good thoroughbred, still a good horse, in doesn't matter where it is, but it has opened up for purpose-bred horses that are bred for, that still have a big percentage of thoroughbred in them, and so they can still gallop, they can still go quick, but they've also been bred for their movement and their jump as well. So it's opened up a whole industry for a lot of people that have come into it. So I think it's all been good. And it was, like any change, a lot of people don't like it or are against it. And, I think that the sport's better for it and it's better for the horses. And, also there's a lot has happened in my career or from the time I've come to this country. Like, I think there was one advanced horse trial in this country when I first came, which was in the, early 90s. And now, the horse trials are really flourishing in this country, and the long formats like you see at Maryland and Kentucky and et cetera, they're still popular, but the shorter format courses and classes are popular, and brings the local community out too. So it's become a sort of a sport, a proper sport and industry, and a lot of riders now are making a living from this, which in my day, it was, you had to ride at the racetrack or do something on the side. This was something that you just save money up to do. Whereas now there's so many people coming into the sport and, lessons and selling horses, et cetera, that, it's a whole industry in itself.
Right. And speaking of how much the sport has grown, like you said, you said there was one advanced horse trial, and now we're actually up to 2 now, 5 stars in the United States,
yes,
with the addition of Maryland last year. So with this growth, what are you seeing for the future of the sport in the United States?
Well, I think, first answer is I think this future is bright and good. I think having a big base, a lot of people coming into the sport can be nothing but good. And, I believe that we have the USCA is the largest eventing organization in the world now, even bigger than England. So, I mean, I think that is all good. And a lot of people coming in that don't have any aspirations to ride at the highest level, which is fine. I think having a broad base is good. Certainly there's a lot of noise now, what is happening with the future of our sport in this country. And, they sort of did not renew Eric Devander's contract, which, on a side note, I was disappointed with because I thought he was an incredible horseman. But I'm hoping that there's some good comes from this whole, issue. And, to be quite honest, it's probably an outdated job description that Eric had and David before him and Mark Phillips before him had, in that, it was basically the one coach going around the whole country, trying to link up with the riders and coach them. And, in this day and age, like we talked about, the sport's growing so much. I don't think it's a USES job to go around coaching the riders. I believe that, there's I think we're all good enough now and, have their own way of doing things. It's up to each individual rider to, present themselves and get them ready for, whatever competition they're planning on. And so, I hope now that this, however it's planned, it will, take that into account and sort of base everything around that. And, if you look at the great or the successful riders in the world or the teams in the world that are really fronting up year in, year out, they're out competing at those top 5 stars throughout the world and the 4 stars and all the team competitions, literally week in, week out. And I do think that that's kind of what we're missing in America, that we just sort of keep, except for Maryland and Kentucky, we basically compete against ourselves. And certainly the COVID and that kind of stuff has restricted overseas travel. But I really think, and that's what I'm going to be trying to do, is to try to put some emphasis on getting to, compete against the best in the world, because that in itself sort of usually elevates, you and the way you train and the way you aim and what your goals are. And so I think hopefully the US riders can, through this new program that's coming out, which we don't know what it is yet, and who's going to be leading it. But I hope that they both base that around that.
What's this? Could you speak on this program? I actually, admittedly, I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about.
So, basically, the job description was, a chef to keep for the US eventing. And so
yes.
I believe that there's been a group put together now that are looking into this, and they're all kind of stakeholders, representatives from, they're all various parts of the industry, like owners and up and coming riders and seasoned riders and course designers. And so they're part of this committee to, navigate what we need in the future. And then I guess to write that job description and advertise for it, who might be interested in doing it. And so I really hope that they do come up with something that, have a good vision for the future for this country. I mean, it does concern me a bit, it sounds good and it's politically correct to be a stakeholder and to be part of the committee, but I don't think that's a guarantee that you know exactly what the future is for this, what the future needs to be for this sport. And by that, I mean, like, I could be, I'm a NFL, Philadelphia Eagles fan, and I could be a season ticket holder, but I wouldn't, for the life of me, know who to pick as a leader for that team, or what players to select or whatever. So, I hope that they get the right people that are going to, come up with, something that's going to really strengthen this country for the next 10 years, not a 2-year plan, but something that really, in 10 years time or 5 years time, we can be leading the world. And, hopefully that's their goal and something that we can all strive for.
With that changing position and trying to be the best program in the world, what do you think that is going to entail, like you said, in like the next 10 years? Like, what kind of advancements do you think are going to be needed to be made?
Well, I think we could model a little bit on the US show jumping and dressage model, in that, they basically have a leader or somebody who oversees where the riders and horses are going to compete internationally, and then they basically help organize or put together those teams, and they compete as in nation cups and as in all the major 4 and 5 star shows, whether it's in dressage or show jumping throughout the world. And not so much in a coaching situation, but just more overseeing and managing, and certainly not saying that they wouldn't be able to step in if needed be, but it's not so much preparing the riders on a day-to-day basis and their horses. It's more overseeing, which horses are going to go where, and making sure that they've got the right programs in their home to be able to do that.
Right, right. I understand. And then going back a little bit to just like I mentioned, the Maryland 5-star earlier, and that being now the second 5-star on U.S. soil, just the seventh in the world. But how do you think that's going to affect the competition here in the United States? Like, what does the addition of this extra 5-star mean for you and the people at the top of the competition?
It's nothing but a great addition. Like the more that you can get the Ollie Townends and the Tim Prices and Janelles and everybody to come over, I mean, that's just really good for all of us. And we have to do the same. We have to go over there as well. And I think there's a place actually, especially, there's all different riders in all parts of the ladder to get to the top. I think we could utilize competing against Canada or, lots of different ways to do that as well, so that we can, try to build up the competing as a team and riding together and, traveling and all that kind of stuff. I think all of that's great. And, as far as the Maryland one goes, I mean, that was, it was a great success to have it kick off like that. And, all kudos to the Maryland government who got behind it. And it's incredible facility. I mean, I do think, just on a side note, I do think that for some horses, the cross country was way too exhausting, and that's one of the issues with the terrain there. So, I mean, hopefully they can look at that, because we certainly in the cross country, it needs to be influential, but we need the horses to be able to, finish well. And some of them finished very easily, and then others really struggled. So, but I'm sure they'll look at that and where the track runs. But no, the more that we could have, 5-stars like that. And obviously, Kentucky's been a huge, huge boost to our sport. And, then the trickle-down effect. I mean, at Bruce's Field, we're having, eventing Grand Prix there. There's some good money on there. So the more that all the competitions start to draw, put some prize money on and draw other riders, possibly overseas riders, it's nothing but great for this country. And that's something that, I think should be encouraged and looked at as well, as how do we make the sport better here as well, rather than just going overseas.
And speaking of that trickle down, and you mentioned it earlier, just the local communities of eventing, how do you think that maybe this will trickle down and affect those smaller, more local communities who are eventers, and maybe they're trying to work their way up in the world? And what does the future of the sport maybe look like for them?
Well, I mean, I think that, it is a great sport. I mean, it's, arguably it's the ultimate in horsemanship, and, that horse, and, if you get a great 5-star horse, I mean, it's pretty unique what they can do in that, be so settled and supple for the dressage, and then, be able to be bold and be able to go fast in the cross country, and then come back on that third day and jump carefully. So, it's an ultimate test, and, but with that comes so much years of training, and, it's pretty hard to buy one of those horses. Like in show jumping or dressage, you can buy a pretty good horse and do well with it. It's pretty hard to do that in eventing and ride at the 5-star level. So, I think that opens up a lot of opportunities for up and coming riders. You don't have to buy your way into it. You can work your way into it, and you can develop the skills and the and the mindset of what it takes to ride like that. And, and it's rewarding, even if you are starting at the beginning and at the bottom. I have my daughter Olivia's here with me in Florida working away, and it's fun for me to see, she's so excited to ride every day, and, sort of brings me back to what it was like when I was her age, and just excited to learn and to, to bring the horses on. And, I think that, if I look back on my career, the thing that's stuck by me probably the most is, that I've probably been, pretty comfortable on the cross country and been, good at it. And, we talked about the importance of dressage and show jumping, and I'm not in any way saying that they're not important. But if you can become a good cross-country rider, it will hold you in good stead, for your future. And, the other two phases, you can keep chipping away at them. But if your basics are good on the cross-country and understand it and can go out there comfortably, I think that's probably, my best advice for people coming up.
And like you said, it's, so difficult to find these 5-star horses that can do all three phases well. And earlier, you mentioned that with the addition of especially show jumping, you kind of need more of a clever type horse that's careful. So when you're looking for potential mounts to compete at this 5-star level, has the evolution of the sport in that aspect where the horses need to be a little more clever, has that changed the way that you're looking at potential mounts? Like, do you look for different traits in those horses than maybe you would have, say, for the Atlanta Olympics, back in '96?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's, and it keeps changing and evolving and what you're looking for. And obviously you have to look for your strengths as the rider's strengths and weaknesses as well. And, and the difficult part about selecting the horse is, you can't, like in show jumping, obviously you can go and try a horse at a Grand Prix height and know what they're feeling like. The horses in eventing, you're not going to go and gallop them over a 5-star cross-country course anywhere and then be able to try them and see what they show jump like the next day. So it's always a bit of an unknown how they're going to come out of, that experience the day before. And obviously, so there's so many things go into that is in how they handle it, so that's why I touched on, horses that have that thoroughbred blood in them usually can handle the cross-country better than the horse that, is a horse that really struggles on the cross country. Even if you make the time, but they're totally exhausted, they're not going to recover the next day as well. And then it doesn't matter how good the jumper they are when they're, feeling normal, when they're really exhausted or knackered, they're not going to come out and jump very well. And so there's a little bit more to it than just finding a good, like you said, clever jumper. They've got to be able to have the scope and the endurance and the ability to handle the cross country relatively easily. And that's obviously a little bit of exaggeration because it's never easy. But a horse that is working really, really hard, chances are he's not going to jump as well the next day either.
And in your career, this is probably a hard question to answer, but if you could pick one of your mounts that is your all-time favorite mount, who would it be?
Well, I mean, that is a hard one. I mean, I started out with a horse called True Blue Girdwood, and when I've read in, I don't know whether it's doctors or psychiatrists, or you talk about something that changes your life. And doesn't, if that didn't happen, your life would have taken a different path, and if you look back on, some people it says it's college, or some people it's, it's a person who really changed them. Well, for me, my life got changed by True Blue Girdwood, and because he was a horse I brought to America, and I'm not sure, and if he turned out a bit of a dud, or he's a terrible horse, I'm not sure where I would have ended. I'm not sure I would have stuck it out, put it that way. So I'd like to think I would have. I'm giving the horse credit for it. So I've had some incredible horses, and and it's actually, I feel a little not loyal in picking any of them out. I mean, I have to say, obviously, Mighty Nice, I won the individual bronze with in Rio, and he didn't have that thoroughbred breeding, but he found a way to try on that third day. So it sort of goes against a little bit what you'd pick. Probably the most talented horse, and I, to this day, feel I didn't get all of it out of him, was a horse called Woodburn. And I rode him at the World Championships in Kentucky, whenever that was. And he sort of had a premature death. He had a pasture accident, but he, like everybody I work with, whether they're dressage people, show jumping people, or the cross country, they all were just like taken with this horse. And he, I did well with him. I think I was second to Kentucky or whatever, but there was still a lot left there. And so he was the one that I kind of, if I had my, if all your wishes come true and you like another chance, he'd be one that I'd try it again with. But I'm fortunate Z is actually up there. I mean, like I said, I feel a bit bad picking them out because we've got so many. I'm really excited.
So WEG is coming up in August. Have you started thinking about that at all?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've always got a plan. Planning, thinking ahead for that, thinking ahead for the next Olympics. And, you always got to have horses in the pipeline. So certainly, I think, I've ridden there twice before. It's actually a great eventing facility. It's not a great facility if it rains because I got caught there one time in the rain. But it's got kind of volcanic soil there, and it gets pretty heavy, and it's beautiful. When the conditions are well. It just doesn't handle the rain quite as well. But no, I think that will be a proper test, and cross country I think would be pretty influential there as well. So you always, I think most event riders or most equestrians that are trying to get on teams or trying to represent their country, you always have that in mind, what's coming up and what horses you're hoping to be able to present and to do well in the selection leading up to it. And so I mean, it's still up a bit in the air because most of the riders are working on their own now and not having somebody to bounce ideas off them like we had with Eric. But that's probably not a bad thing. I think it's good for people to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, and hopefully we're excited about what might be coming up in what direction and future that the USCF can come up with. And
so the season is going to start kicking off in the next few weeks and months for 2022. We have Red Hills coming up, and then Carolina, and of course Kentucky in the spring. What are you thinking of this season ahead of you? Who are your mounts for the 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars? What's next for you?
Well, we're sort of in that, legging up, doing a lot of miles, a lot of trotting, a lot of flat work and easy jumping. And we've just started showing a little bit here in Wellington. So obviously Z is the most experienced one I have, and we'll see what the COVID and travel restrictions are like. But I mean, ideally, I'd like to take into badminton. I've been there. I think I've been there 4 times now, maybe 5, and I haven't been for a long time. And there's been plenty of times that I've entered over the last 10 years and have not gone. And so we'll I'll maybe send that entry in again and see if we get there. But so he's there, and then obviously, like I said, Cosequin is did well last year. I think I'll probably aim him for a 4-star long. Ideally for his career, I think it'd be better to do one more rather than go to a 5-star. We had the thoroughbred Sea of Clouds, so he'll probably go to Kentucky. He was a little superstar at Maryland.
Yeah.
And so, I think he's step up from there. And then we have a new mare, actually, which is a little unusual for me, called Aspire, which she came from Elizabeth Powers in Ireland. And so she should be able to do a 4-star long as well. And then the horse that I bought a couple of years ago and has been plagued with stupid injuries called Carlton. So he's coming back and looking pretty good.
Yeah, I know
Carlton.
So, he is. Good.
Yeah, so we've got those, and then obviously some up-and-coming horses that we're excited about. So there's plenty to keep me busy.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this new mare, Aspire? Are you typically stick to geldings? It sounds like.
Well, actually, I wouldn't say I do. I just look for, the right horse. I don't really decide if, don't really care what color they are or whether they're mare or gelding. so Carol G sort of called me about this one, and she's still a work in progress, certainly on the flat, and she's not by any means a docile, quiet, laid back lady. She's got a bit of spice about her, but I like her. I think she's going to be an incredible cross-country horse. She's a great jumper, and she actually moves well. And so we just got to put the time in, and so she understands it. And there's no great goal or plan yet. So we'll just see how she is when I come out and how we get along. And got the Moran clan that have joined in to buy her. So Carol and her brother Michael and his wife Anne are the owners of her, and so I'm excited to get out and have those guys really enjoy this mare, and hopefully we can do well with her.
Well, good luck down in Loxahatchee for the rest of the season, and I'm sure I'll see you at an event sometime this spring, if not before Kentucky.
Perfect.
But thank you so much for hopping on. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Super. Thanks so much, Philip. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode with Phillip Dutton, and a big thank you to the sponsor of this week's episode, Cosequin Equine. Learn more at cosequinequine.com. You can subscribe to the Practical Horseman podcast on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. While you're there, please rate and review the show. I'm Julia Murphy, and you've been listening to the Practical Horseman podcast.